Robert died of massive beating to his body, both externally and internally. Several of his internal organs were bruised. His hyoid bone was fractured. His thyroid cartilage was ripped. He also died as a result of repeated restrictions to his airways, causing severe brain damage. And finally, he died by choking on his own blood.
We want to find out what the issue is, because the individuals who've walked out in an unsanctioned strike, unapproved by the union, have yet to tell us the issues. But when they're not represented by a union, and I'm negotiating with a union, I'm asking the union, what do they want? I mean, it can't be pay and benefit. I want to take a moment to address the illegal walkouts that are occurring at prison facilities all across the state of New York. Let me be clear. The illegal actions being taken by a number of individuals is putting the entire state at risk. We need them back to work. This must end immediately.
First things first, I'd like to give a big salute to all the real right correctional officers who are actually, having a positive impact when it comes to doing their professionalism, when it comes to working. And also, I like to give a rest in peace to all the fallen inmates who actually were unalived behind the walls. At the same time, I want to give you both sides of the opinions of what's going on right now. You have two opinions, two different groups. You have the COs who you have certain COs. I'm not going to bunch all of them in one group, but you do have certain COs who are looking at the situation as, you know what? It's us against the inmates. We can care less. Then you have the COs who I feel like they're being tricked into the strike because, they fear for their safety. I understand that, but I feel like there's a scapegoat. It's a catalyst involved in the situation right now. It seems so convenient how the strike took place after the 6 officers were actually indicted. I feel like they need to be served and they have to do time. I don't know about the manslaughter charge, but I feel like it should be a little bit more strict than that. That's just my opinion. I speak for the people, not everyone, but there's a majority. At the same time, we need to come to a medium. All of this has to do either with the HALT Act or just with their security issues. My thing is, putting someone in a box is not an end-all, save-all. It doesn't solve anything. All you're doing is getting rid of the problem for a temporary time. Whether it may be 30 days, 90 days, a year, they're going to come back worse. I feel like something needs to be in place so that they can actually correct people, rehabilitate people. Instead, right now, you have inmates who can't get visitation, no commissary. There's no, I don't know if you guys are aware, but you can't just walk up and go take a bath whenever you want. It doesn't work like that. You need a correctional officer to actually take you to that section so you can actually achieve that. Also, you have officers to take you to classes. You have officers to take you to rec time. None of that is happening right now. So if you have a loved one, make sure you check out on them, all right? Remember, at the end of the day, we're all human. We do understand that Mr. Brooks was serving a 12-year sentence. However, he was not sentenced to death. So therefore, his death was unacceptable. Let me stop wasting your time. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. If you like reactions like this, consider hitting that like button. Definitely subscribe to the channel and also hit the notification bell. Don't be scared to leave a comment. Let's go, baby.
Our investigation revealed that in addition to the taint beating, which you probably have already seen, Robert was beaten on 2 prior occasions between 9/07 and the time of his death, within minutes of his arrival at Marcy. Our investigation further revealed that there was no provocation by Robert Brooks that would have precipitated any physical response whatsoever.
Crazy.
Never mind the physical response that was inflicted upon him. I think any sentient human being looking at the tapes naturally comes to the conclusion that he must have said something. He must have spit at the officers. He must have resisted in some way. And the fact of the matter is, he did absolutely nothing.
All right, I guess it's time I have this discussion. I was a CO with New York State for 5 years. I left for the reason that they are striking right now. Let's get into it really quickly about why I left and what is going on and why they are striking, because the news is kind of expressing what's going on, but not really. All right, number 1, the HALT bill. Halt bill was a piece of legislation that went into effect about 7 years ago, give or take. Now, what it does is it basically limits and reduces punishment for basically doing something that's illegal in a jail for an inmate. You could, and this is a direct quote, and I'm not kidding you about this. An inmate, somebody could assault staff, could assault an officer. The most they could get for that is 15 days in the SHU, or special housing unit, which is a group of cells that you guys know as solitary. That's just basically,
he's leaving out the added time.
Put on its own.
It's not
where
that
they have
simple.
Limited movement because they're
not
violent.
15 days.
These are hardworking men and women that come to work every day that just want to go home, okay? And they're afraid to go in there.
Corrections officer at Attica Correctional Facility describing the need for change inside state prisons. He's among the voices we're amplifying tonight on what's been a very busy day 3 of the strikes outside of dozens of New York State prisons. Officers first walked off the job Monday following a multi-day lockdown at Collins Correctional in southern Erie County. Now, on its 3rd day, dozens of facilities have joined, and officers have a long list of demands before they say they'll return to work. And among them, no staffing reductions and a reversal of the HALT Act, which limits the use of solitary confinement areas.
Now, I don't know. If you ask me, I feel like they are all over the place with their demands. I really don't know what exactly it is they're really asking for. I get the part with the security, danger, but I forgot, my bad. Also with the overtime, I guess they mandate them to stay. Sometimes they gotta work 2 shifts. I mean, at the end of the day, you sign up for this. You know what time it is. None of this is old. Should I say, none of this is new. None of this is new information. I just feel like they could have went on strike. When they first implemented the whole act and they didn't like it, within that year, I feel like that's when they should have, had a strike with the union. But I guess right now the union said, no. We want no part of this right here. You guys are inconveniently doing a strike once you figured out that they're going to start penalizing some of the officers. So it looks like they're saying, well, we need sense of security so we can be able to do what we want to do to people. We don't like these new rules. And this is not how it goes, because now you have officers with attitudes, aggression, and they're taking, their personal life into their business, and you know how that goes. But I don't agree with any of that.
This is a complex issue, not only involving prison officers, but the inmates.
How's everybody doing out there today? So, I made a video yesterday about the DOC, and I've gotten responses from some people asking me questions and stuff. Man, listen. These COs out there striking, I'm going to come right out and say it. COs in prison, there are some that I've met that could be decent human beings. And I get that they're feeding their family. And I get that, they are in a place that shit has to be conducted in a certain way. But they're cruel, man. And they can be very cruel to the people that are in there.
I believe it.
And not all the people in there, again, necessarily are criminals. Some of them are just fucked up kids that just didn't know how to stay in trouble, and then they just become part of the system. Some of them are adults that just, again, were made by the system. And I listen to these COs and I listen to their griefs and their beefs, and it's the same beef they've always had. Safety, not enough overtime, not enough staff, too much work. It's the same cry. It's the same thing all the time. Oh, we can't secure these inmates. We can't do this. We can't do that. They did studies, long studies for years, about long-term effect of long-term incarceration
Damages
and
the
long-term
brain.
segregation.
So I have an update in the Robert Brooks case of him.
All right, we're going to have to say these names right here. For those who don't know, these are all the people actually involved in the situation, whether they're allegations or they're facts. Check it out. These are, I guess, the people who were nearby, in the view of the camera, in the room, or in the hallway. We have Sergeant Michael Mishaw, Sergeant Glenn Tromley, Correctional Officer Matthew Gallagher, Nicholas Anzalone, David Kingsley, Nicholas Kiefer, Robert Kessler, Michael Fisher, Christopher Walrath, Michael Along, Shay Schaff, David Walters, Nurse Kyle Dashnar, and Correctional Officer Farina, which resigned before suspension and termination, which means they're probably able to keep their benefits, right? Which that's absurd right there. However, just look at all of the names. I'm gonna leave it at that. Look at the names. Do you see a pattern? Hey, I'm just stating out the obvious.
Being alive by the correctional officers. Here are all the names of all the officers and the nurse that have been suspended pending investigation by the FBI, except for Anthony down here, who resigned before being suspended. The New York DA have recused himself from this case because of conflict of interest. I've handed it over to another county's DA because, believe it or not, the New York DA is actually defending 3 of these officers in another case.
We're now in week 2 of the CO strike in upstate New York. DOCS has responded. DOCS is looking to dock 2 days worth of pay for each day that the guards participate in the strike. And for those that plan to return to work, I believe today, will keep their jobs. However, those that continue to strike from this day forth are at risk of termination.
That's right, Jeff. We're going on 3 days now here in Collins and just outside of Collins Correctional here at this illegal strike. And now they have a very specific message for a very specific political leader. One now retired corrections officer telling me he finally had enough of this job just a few weeks ago.
I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner.
Alan Russa was a correction officer at Collins Correctional for 28 years until he retired this past December.
The working conditions in there are deplorable.
He tells me there's 2 main reasons his former co-workers went on strike. The HALT Act limiting solitary confinement usage in prisons.
Due to the HALT bill, there's no repercussions for the inmates' actions anymore.
And a lack of staffing. In 2024, how much overtime did you work?
Just under 3,000 hours of overtime in 1 year.
How does that even happen?
There's no one else left to work.
They finally had to take matters into their own hands. And I salute these men and women for standing here.
These people look like hunters to me.
Go for it, tell them.
That's the
I
governor.
come down here to ask you guys. Nobody wants to talk. You can't talk, but you're striking for something you can't talk about. It's just ridiculous.
Look at them at work. Well, in front of their job instead of being at work, freezing.
Other members of the mainstream media, you're gonna
Go to
tell them,
Albany.
Stand across the street. Who the fuck do you guys think you are? You guys are trespassing on the state's property.
You got a point.
Fucking joke.
This guy look like he got hip
I'm exercising
issues.
free speech, buddy. Do it somewhere else, wait. No, you're welcome.
Then he wouldn't be a tough guy.
Wherever I want to be. Right, just like I can. There you go.
Okay, guys, so I'm still at work, keep in mind, but a little update. So, for one, everyone who's saying about the National Guard, the National Guard is there. They've been outside of Bear Hill for like 2 to 3 days now. They haven't went in. Again, to not confuse somebody and like correct these things. Well, not correct them, but to reiterate these things. The COs officially left last night. They left last night. So, no, I didn't say that they've been without food for 3 days. No, they was good until last night. They left last night. But they was already doing little stuff, you get what I'm saying, to contest with their strike. They was already doing stuff like not running yard, not running rec, not calling for packages, not calling for programs. They was already doing those little things, but they officially left last night. That's one. 2, Two, the rumor that says that they have drones in the windows. From my understanding, My husband told me that's not true. There's no drone in the windows.
Yo, you know what's crazy about the whole Robert Brooks
Seem like
story
all the
is that
COs
everybody
marry
in
each
that
other.
prison lives in fear. And then we don't believe the people who are incarcerated because we give ourselves permission not to care for them based on the fact that they broke the law or were convicted of a crime. Isn't that crazy?
Crazy.
And then when videos like this come out, everybody's shocked. Yet everybody that lives inside of that prison knows that this happens regularly. And it should investigate all deaths in that entire facility. All deaths. Not just this one, but all the deaths. Because I'm going to tell you, where there's smoke, there's fire.
It was determined Brooks suffered multiple bruises on his face and arms and legs, a fractured nasal bone, multiple soft tissue bleeding in his neck on both the left and right sides, as well as bleeding in the genitalia area.
What?
So the medical examiner also reported concerns for asphyxia, this due to compression of the neck, as well as Brooks's death due to actions of another.
They're playing games here. This medical examiner is
Definitely
playing
are
games here.
playing games.
When they declare that the deaths is at the hands of another, that is the definition for the medical legal term homicide used in cause and manner of death. They're saying at the end, if you continue with that they haven't declared a cause and manner. Okay, well, they have. That statement, death at the hands of another, is the definition of homicide.
It's not just my father, but it could be your cousin, it could be your uncle, it could be your niece, it could be your sister, it could be any one of us. And I want to say thank you so much. The world needs to know. The world needs to know. And I want to personally say thank you guys for coming out to drive. I want to say thank you so much. I'm lost for words right now because of the support. It's so momentum. It's overwhelming right now. But my dad is looking at us right now. His name will not go in vain.
Well, there you have it, folks. Now, one thing I need to tell you is this. A lot of people have a misconception of what an inmate is. They automatically assume it's a black person. That is incorrect. You need to go visit. You need to drive over there and just see for yourself. Many of you have loved ones and you don't even go visit. But you should go visit them to give them a sense of hope when they come back into society. But at the same note, there are many different races incarcerated. All right. You have Jewish people up there. You have Spanish people up there. You have white people up there. You have Asian people up there. I mean, there's people of all walks of life, all shapes and sizes, many different ages. I'm telling you like this, the news only likes to show you a certain kind of demographic of who is actually in there. That is incorrect. Open up your eyes, do your own research. Remember, everyone in there is not necessarily a stone cold criminal. Many people just made a dumb decision and they have to pay the price and they're in there. Okay? So with that being said, you can end up in there with a suspended license. A revoked license could end you up in prison. With a revoked license, you can end up in prison. I'm just telling you, these are how things go. And they're going to place you around people who did much more worse things than you ever even could think of doing. With that being said, listen, right now, let's just hope for the best, but they got to come to a medium. They have to come to a point where, all right, look, you either need a new culture of correctional officers or you need to retrain them. At the same note, we need things in place for the inmates. You just can't let, an idle mind is the devil's playground. Never forget that right there. So if you think the answer is to just put people in segregation for any little reason, I believe the whole act was in place so that you really need a real reason to put somebody in there. I believe, you have people who power trip and they just say, you know what, throw him in the shoe. It's over for him. He's getting on my nerve. I had enough of him. You can't tell me that don't happen. With that being said, go in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on all of this right here. This is terrible. I mean, if it was a real issue, you would see this countrywide. It's just in New York. So with that being said, you should know why they're doing that and what just happened. I'll see you guys in the next one. Love.